It was Monday, September 16, 2013, just after 8 o'clock in the morning. 34-year-old Navy contractor Aaron Alexis, armed with a Remington pump-action shotgun, gains entry to Building 197 at the Navy Yard in the District of Columbia. Over the next roughly hour and 20 minutes, 12 people would be gunned down. One was a resident of D.C., 5 lived in Virginia, 6 of the victims lived in Maryland.
This was the darkest days in our life,
including Sylvia Frazier.
She was not supposed to be there that day. She was actually sitting in for a meeting for someone who had called her on that prior day and asked because they were not able to make the meeting.
Dr. Wendy Edmonds is her sister.
I woke up that morning and it was just a normal day. And what happened is that my phone started buzzing. And I checked it and it was calls from the family. And my sister said, "Do you have the news on?" "No." And she said, "There's been a shooting at the Washington Navy Yard."
Because cell phones were banned from Building 197, the victims were unable to contact the outside world. Time dragged on.
I hadn't heard from my sister, and I had sent a text message to her saying, "Are you okay?" We were calling, and no response. And then they said there were deaths. And my brother said, "I don't like the sound of that."
Well, I can see that moment, and it's being very clear.
Hours later, Edmund's brother arrived at their parents' house in Glenarden, where most of the family had gathered.
He actually gave us the news and said that Sylvia was injured. She did not survive her gunshot wounds, and Sylvia's home with the Lord now. And the whole house exploded. It just exploded. I mean, I watched my father's body just go into contortions in total disbelief, and my mother just rocked. She never cried. She just kept rocking and rocking and rocking. "Are you sure? Did you see the body? Are you sure? Are you sure?"
53-year-old Sylvia Frazier was a civilian employee at the Navy Yard. She had been there 30 years.
She loved to tell jokes. Funny or not, she would tell the jokes.
Edmund says it was important for her to forgive the gunman right away.
I know that to get to the point that I needed to be, to do the work that it would take to be with my family and help my family, I had to start with forgiveness. And it was not for him, it was for me.
But with each mass shooting, the pain and trauma rushes back. Just 3 days after we conducted this interview on August 28th, there was another mass shooting in West Texas. At least 8 were gunned down.
It's painful. It is painful. And when I say that I cry, I cry. I cry because I know the pain of the sudden shock of your loved one never coming home again.
To be sure, not a day goes by that the family doesn't think about Sylvia, her strength, her wit, her personality.
And the one that comes to mind right now is a woman who she worked with that was homeless. And she and her son were living in her car. And every day, Sylvia would make sure that they had breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And so, for this tight-knit family, they press forward and continue to appeal to our better angels.
We must stand in the gap for those who have gone on before us and for those who are here now, because unfortunately, we're all subject to mass shootings.
Byron Scott, CTV News.